Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaye Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Namah Pranavarthaye Shuddha Jnanaikamurtaye Nirmalaya Prashantaye Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Using a very good example of Swapna, the author talks of Pratibhasika Jiva and Jagat, Vyavaharika Jiva and Jagat, and Paramarthika Jiva. There is no Paramarthika Jagat. In Swapna, you create a Jiva and a Jagat, all of which is, really speaking, false, because they are all you, the dreamer, but looks real. What happens when the Swapna is over? From the Swapna Avastha, either you wake up to Jagrata Avastha, directly from Swapna Avastha, it's possible. Or from the Swapna Avastha, you go back to Nidra Avastha. That is also possible. When a person who is dreaming goes back to Nidra Avastha and then comes back to Jagrata Avastha, when his consciousness, be very careful of the word consciousness, this is a Rudyartha consciousness, returns to him. In other words, when the Sthula Sukshma Sharira become available for transaction, he doesn't remember this Swapna. He may have a vague memory, I saw something. He may even have an impression that was very nice, but he will not remember this Swapna generally. On the other hand, if we wakes up from Swapna directly to Jagrata Avastha, the Swapna is generally available for recollection, because you have come back to a state where your Sthula Sukshma Sharira is available to you. Then you discuss, very anxious to tell everybody, you know, I saw the wonderful dream yesterday. I was a multimillionaire. Sadly, it was only false. It was not real. I wish it was real. And the next day, you see another Swapna. You project, you see meaning, or you actually create. Where you're falling into a deep ditch. You end up breaking your leg. And then you find there are unpleasant insects and animals there. Then you wake up and say, Thank God it is false. It was not real. It is false. In the swapna, unless the person has done a lot of shravanam, he may have only a vague idea of what is mithya. But he will know it is false. He doesn't know what mithya is. But after we have done so much of shravanam, sometimes a question will come to the mind. Is the mithya that I see when I create a swapna jagat and the mithya that Shastra tells me that I'm living right now in my Jagrata Avastha, are they the same? They are not. What I experience in the swapna is my creation. I created the Jagat, I created the Jiva. I myself recognize them both as I. They are pratibhashika. So when I recognize them to be mithya, I can call them pratibhashika mithya. From the perspective of the waking, they don't exist. But as long as the dream exists, they exist. Projections exist, they exist. So I have one that I have created, the mithya that I have created. Why did I create that mithya? That is the nature of the self, of the Chidabhasa. The one who dreams. Swapna has a very good purpose also. Swapna, the jiva in the swapna, the pratibhashika jiva in the swapna is a bhokta. But it's not really a karta. It is like janma in the Jagrata state other than Manushya janma. You can't create any more punya papa in the swapna. But you can undergo, as long as you are in the swapna, wonderful feeling that you're winning some great Olympics, or you can undergo not so nice feeling that you're running, some lion is chasing you, you cross over a bridge and the bridge breaks and you fall down. There's a river there, the river takes you away, there's fear all the time. That is also bhogyam. So in the swapna, one exhausts certain bhogyam, either punya bhogyam or papa phala bhogyam. What is the difference between that and what Shastra tells us and what we understand as mithya in the Jagrata Avastha? That mithya is not something I have created. In the Jagrata Avastha, I suffer pain. I enjoy some very nice things. I suffer hurt. I suffer guilt. I also enjoy nice Alfonso mango. I also enjoy a nice book, a nice relationship. Just the way I am a bhokta in the swapna, the swapna jiva, swapna kalpita jiva, I'm also a bhokta here. In the vyavaharika jagat. This vyavaharika jagat and the jiva who is going through punya phala or papa karma phala is also mithya. But I didn't create it. And because I didn't create it, and really the person who is going through all this is Chidabhasa, and I don't recognize anything else. This is real to me. Therefore, the suffering is real, the pleasure is real, the pain is real. This, Shastra says, is mithya, not created by you. It's mithya, the Jagat is created by Ishvara. Ishvara Shrishtam Jagat. Therefore, Ishvara Shrishtam mithya. For all of it, the cause is Maya. Pratibhashikam mithya, Vavaharikam mithya, we are only for understanding. Everything is only Brahman. It is that mithya which seemingly creates both the Vyavaharika mithya and the Pratibhashika mithya. So we have these two different types of mithya. One could classify them as, for purposes of understanding. You will find that Shastra gives many examples for Vyavaharika type of mithya. Everything is classified. We like to classify everything. Diabetes type 1, diabetes type 2, mithya type 1, mithya type 2. This Vyavaharika mithya, Ishvara Shrittam, there are a lot of examples to try and understand mithya. Our famous clay pot is an example, where clay is the adhiṭhānam on which potness is superimposed. Aropita. Like that, there are many examples we have seen. We have seen gold ornaments in gold, iron instruments and iron. These are the examples that Shastra will give. Chandogya gives about 9 of them. But Shastra doesn't talk about rope snake. Where did the rope snake example come from? Rope snake regarding this, mother of pearl lying on the beach somewhere shines like silver. Or you see a post in semi-light and you're walking in semi-darkness in the forest. It looks like perhaps, post of a tree trunk with 2 branches. It looks like, my God, there's a highway robber there. Like that, there are many examples. The rope snake, Rajat, all of them, who created? They are Ishvara Shrittam. There's nothing, there's not Ishvara Shrittam here. But I created them. Therefore, those examples are very good examples for Pratibhasika mithya. Shastra doesn't talk about it. Shastra at best says, you understand that in Swapna you create your own mithya jagat and mithya jiva. So all the examples in Shastra will talk about only the Vyavaharik mithya examples. Because that is what we have to understand. This Swapna mithya we understand fairly easily. Because Swapna lasts a short time and we get out of the Swapna, therefore we understand the Swapna mithya fairly easily. And therefore we are able to say, thank God it's only a nightmare. Or thank God, or not thank God, I wish it was true in my Jagat Avastha. We don't say Jagat Avastha. We say, thank God it was true here and now. In reality, there is no reality. But in this Vyavaharika Jagat, within this Vyavaharika Jagat, also not only in Swapna, but here also we create our own Mithya Jagat. Like I said, because somebody told us before we went on a trek in the forest, carrying some valuables perhaps, be careful. There are brigands, they waylay people, and they will take all your possessions, and if you don't give, they hurt you. It need not be a forest, okay? It could be in Central Park in New York. Same thing, or in the beaches of Brazil. And we see something we imagine, because the mind is already prepared, we imagine robbers. Just the way we imagine snake. And we want to run away. But when we see what looks like silver in the distance, we run towards it, hoping that we'll find silver pieces. But look at this. Within this samsara, within this jagat, which is mithya, Ishvarashtam mithya, when you declare, I am a samsari, I am a sukhi dukhi, ihaloka paraloka gami, all this samsara only. That is also pratibhatika mithya. Imagined, kalpita, because we accept this as satyam, paramarthikam. There may be sometimes a nagging doubt, this cannot be true. But the conviction is so strong that we accept that this is reality. Everything else is non-real. Even when you, for example, mistake a person for somebody else, that is also our own created mithya. But we quickly recover. This fellow walking on the street and thought he saw his wife walking ahead. And he said, thank God, I thought she was at home. So he goes closer and hails, hey, what are you doing here? He turns around and he finds that not his wife, somebody else. That mithya lasted for a very short time. Thank God. Otherwise, he would have got a nice little slap. We judge people. Also mithya. Pratibhasika mithya. That is why it is said to be judgmental is detrimental to you. Because of pratibhasika mithya. This is not paramarthika jiva. We have the vyavaharika jiva, which assumes I am real. I am paramarthika, which assumes that the jagat around me, which I want to explore, which I want to extract for my personal benefit, is all real. It is all paramarthika. But what is the real nature of paramarthika jiva? Is there a paramarthika jiva which we don't recognize? Because we are so convinced that this is real, this is satyam. That I am is satyam. The truth is, I am is satyam. But you add anything after that, it's mithya. I am happy, I am tall, I am ignorant. Anything you add after. The am, the isness is Satyam. The attributes implied on the I is Nitya. So to understand what Paramarthika Jiva is, earlier, if you remember, gone through the previous verses where he said the Pratibhashika Jiva assumes that the Pratibhashika Jagat is real. The Pratibhashika Jiva is real, Pratibhashika Jagat is real. Till he wakes up. Till he recognizes himself as a Vyavaharika Jiva, then he says the Pratibhashika Jiva and the Pratibhashika Jagat I created, they're all I, are all false. Then he said that is false, but I am real. What is I? Vyavaharika. And I interact in this Vyavaharika Jagat, which is real. Therefore, for him, there is no Vyavaharika. There's only one Pratibhashika which he created and Paramarthika. For the Pratibhashika Jiva, there is only Paramarthika. As long as you're looking at it as the Pratibhashika Jiva, I and the Pratibhashika Jagat, I don't recognize them as Pratibhashika Jagat. I say they are Paramarthika. Then I move to this state, I say no, they are Pratibhashika. Pratiti Matram. Then how do I understand this? Only when I am able to place myself correctly in Paramarthika can I look at this and say, oh, all this is also Vyavaharika Vidya. And how do you place yourself out of this place? Our Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam is the only way Shastra says. So here he comes up with this very interesting verse 42. Please put that on, please. Paramarthika Jivastu.
Paramarthika Jivastu.
Brahmaikyam Paramarthikam.
Brahmaikyam Paramarthikam.
Pratyeti Vikshate Nanyat.
Pratyeti Vikshate Nanyat.
Vikshate Tvanutatmana.
Vikshate Tvanutatmana.
Earlier it said Vyavaharika Jivaha Yaha Tad Jagat Vyavaharikam. Satyam Pratyeti. He sees the Vyavaharika Jagat as Satyam. But Paramarthika perspective, Mityeti Manyate Paramarthika. The Paramarthika Jiva knows it to be Mithya. What is the Paramarthika? He's saying Paramarthika Jiva. Paramarthika Jiva tu. On the other hand, to Paramarthika Jiva Brahmaikyam Paramarthikam Pratyeti knows Aham Brahmosmi. Brahma Aikyam Paramarthikam Pratyeti. Brahma Aikyam means what? Swagata, Swajatiya, Vijatiya, Veda Rahita Brahman. Ananya. I am that Brahman which has no differentiation either within a group, between groups, either within itself, within a group, or between groups. Svagata, Svajatiya, Vijatiya, Bheda Rahitam. No difference. Because in the Pratibhashika Jagat, what did we see? The Chidabhasa is the Adhishthanam. That on that is Aropita, Chidabhasa Jiva and Chidabhasa Jagat. Sorry. On this Aropita, Pratibhashika Jiva and Pratibhashika Jagat. On the Chidabhasa. Chidabhasa Adhishthanam. Like our rope. So you have within this Bhokta and Bhogya. Bhokta is the Jiva, subject. Bhogya is the Jagat that you created. Therefore, you have Bhogyam. Therefore, the Jiva there is a Bhokta. But when do you recognize this to be Mithya? When you understand that this Mithya Jagat and Mithya Jiva are non-separate from the Adhishthanam, which is the Chidabhasa. Correct? When that Ananyatvam is known, and I think I am the Chidabhasa Vyavaharika Jagat, I know that all that I saw in the Swapna is non-separate from me. I am not any of them. I am the Vyavaharika Chidabhasa. But I created that, therefore they are all Mithya Adhishthanam Ananyate. I created that Mithya. Adhishthanam Ananyate. You will come across this word Ananya again and again. You will see how beautifully the word describes what is the truth. In the Vyavaharika Jagat also, till we recognize the Adhishthanam and till we recognize the Aikyam with the Adhishthanam, this Jagat, Vyavaharika Jagat, and the Vyavaharika Jiva will all be real. Just the way the Chidabhasa being the Adhishthanam for whatever you create in the Swapna Jagat, the Swapna Jiva and the Swapna Jagat are non-separate from the Adhishthanam, which is Chidabhasa, which one assumes to be I in the waking state when the Swapna is over. How is this going to be over? When am I going to recognize that there is an Adhisthana for this also? Yes. When I recognize Paramarthika Jiva, who is the Paramarthika Jiva? Paramarthika means the ultimate. Actually, there is no ultimate, there is only Brahman. But that Paramarthika Jiva is called Paramarthika Jiva when Brahmaikyam Paramarthikam Pratyeti. When he recognizes the Adhishthanam as Brahman, then that Brahman becomes everything. Everything is that Brahman. So here, the Jagat, the mountain, the hills, the pain, the pleasures, the thoughts, everything becomes Atma, consciousness, Om. So whatever I thought I was undergoing, including now the Kartritvam, because I assume I'm the Karta and I'm the Bhokta. All that is nothing but the Adhishthanam for the Vyavaharika Mithya. So when he recognizes that Brahmaikyam, Swagata Swajatiya Vijatiya Bheda Rahitam Brahman. Then what happens? Vikshate na anyat. Vikshate nanyat. He sees nothing else because everything else is nothing but that adhiṣṭhānam Brahman. You see that all that I thought was happening, the multiple things that were there, I and the non-I that I assumed are all the same, are ananyam. They are ananya as far as Brahman is concerned. Na anyat vikshyate. Tu anrita atmana. Svanrutatmana. Bit of a tongue twister. Tu anrita atmana. So the real jiva meaning the paramarthika jiva is one who recognizes Brahman as the adhiṣṭhānam, and therefore everything is nothing but the Brahman, just like we saw that the dreamer recognizes everything as being non-separate from Chidabhasa, which is the adhiṣṭhānam. But what does generally the world see? World recognizes only what it sees, what it perceives, sees, hears, smells, tastes, whatever. So you say it is real because I can see it. Shastra turns it on its head and says you can see it, therefore it is not real. You can see it, therefore it is non-real, it cannot be real. Real, the Satyam, is not available for any perception. Indriya Atitaha, not available for any perception. Then once you, when you understand this Brahmaikyam, and therefore the Ananyatvam, then you can say, Arshavidyalaya pashyati kacha, Arshavidyalaya pashyati, Arshavidyalaya pashyati kachidenam, Arshavidyalaya padati tathaiva
Chidenam.
Arshavidyalaya sunu. Yeah, you look and say, how can he be so idiotic? Yeah, but I was idiotic myself. I have to remember to recognize this, both to recognize the mithya and to recognize satyam from the mithya. I have to have thinking capacity. Bhagavan has given this capacity to Manushya to question and to think and understand mithya. And because you understand mithya, understand satyam. Then you look around and say, my God, why can't you see? It's so straightforward. It's there right in front of you. It is like our 10th man. He looks foolish. He himself feels foolish when somebody comes and points out, look, all of you are here. You're just not counting yourself. When you first hear the story, you're very skeptical. I was certainly. How can somebody count like this? Count only 9 and say one person missing. How foolish can you get? And then you read that comparison that Vidya Muni has given and saying this is exactly what we do in our Vyavaharika state. My God, was I also that foolish? Why, did I do what this 10th man did? Or am I still doing what the 10th man had done? Banging my head against the tree and saying, my God, one person missing, one person missing. We are. Therefore, the Paramarthika Jiva, who understands his oneness, identity with Brahman, Ham Brahmosmi, and understand that's the only reality, that is the Satyam. Then he does not see anything else. Does that mean that a jnani will not see the world? No. Jnani will see the world, but he sees it with the knowledge that this is Vidya. Like the waking fellow wakes up and says that entire experience, the experiencer, experience object in the swapna are all Vidya, non-real, illusory. It's so clear. So when you come to the Vyavaharika state, it's not so clear. Because the fellow in the dream, also there is not clear to him. Where he says, oh my God, so much difficulty I have. So much difficult relationship I have to go through. But when he wakes up, he says, no, that's not real. In the Vyavaharika state also, it says, when he recognizes the Aikyam with Brahman, when he recognizes only what he sees. I have a very good example for saying, just because you don't see does not mean that it is not there. It is there. When you go up, drive up a hillock, you can't see the road ahead, or a curved road for that matter. And you say, I don't see any vehicle in front of me, and therefore I overtake on the wrong side. The vehicle was there. Big truck carrying beer cans. You will be drowned in beer. Just because I don't see doesn't mean it's not there. Just because I see doesn't mean it is there. I have understood. All this Jagat is Mithya. Therefore, this wall ahead of me is Mithya. I'm going to walk through. You will only get a bloody nose. But he understands this is only Vyavaharika, empirical. And this body-mind sense complex, which is now making a statement this is all illusory, is also in the same state. Within the same order of reality, they are real. You can also say, I'm going to walk through this wall, break my nose, and blood flows, this pain. You can say, oh, that is also all illusory. That is also all Mithya. That is the nature of the Paramarthika Jiva. As separate from two, the Vyavaharika Jiva and the Pratibhasika Jiva. One is created by you, and the other is created by Ishvara. Means the more Ishvara we can bring in, the more we can get rid of Pratibhasika. More objective we can be. We started the whole thing by saying that there is Drsya and Dṛk. And as long as we don't understand the difference between Dṛk and Dṛśya, the perceived world, the world will always be real. The body-mind sense complex, all of them we take to be real. The ego comes into play, individuality comes into play. whole idea of this jiva and the jagat is superimposition, aropita. And who does that? Our friend Maya. And creates all kinds of problems for us. Does Brahman, where I've understood the Aikyam, does it create this whole Jagat? Do I create this whole Jagat? And if I create this whole Jagat, do I undergo change? Like milk becoming curd? No. Brahman is like the Swapna Pratibhasika creates. Pratibhasika, the Chidabhasa creates. The Chidabhasa doesn't undergo any change. And yet a whole new Jagat, including time, space, everything has been created. What happened to Chidabhasa? Remained unchanged. Swarupa aparityagena rupantarapattihi. Rupa antarapattihi. Without undergoing any change itself. When you created the rope out of a snake out of rope, nothing happened to the rope. Similarly, on the road, because of road rage, you created a monster out of the fellow driving the other vehicle. Nothing happens to the other fellow. You change. Brahman is vivarta upadhana karana. We don't say it is not upadhana karana. It is upadhana karana. But not undergoing any change by itself. That Brahman, with that Brahman I have Aikyam. When I therefore make a statement that I am the cause of the whole world, the whole world belongs to a different order of reality. Like the snake. Snake doesn't belong to the same order of reality as the rope. The snake is a different order of reality. Therefore, you can create an entire Jagat without making any change to the adhisthana. Vivarta upadhana. So in the next verse he says, everything that we see in this Jagat, whether it is Pratibhasika Jiva or the Vyavaharika Jiva, the Sthula Sukshma Sharira in the Pratibhasikam or the Sthula Sukshma Sharira in the Vyavaharikam, they do not have an existence of their own. They are Jada. But if they are Jada, how can you call them Jivatma? What is Jivatma? After I says, Tad Srishtva Tanu Pravishat. Consciousness, Atma, entered into the entire Jagat. So he gives a very interesting example. In the next three verses, he talks about, we've seen this example earlier, but he goes into a little bit of detail. We also talked about other examples. Say, for example, this Angavastram I wear. Angavastram is made of fabric. Therefore, whatever is the property of the fabric is the property of Angavastram. Correct? The fabric itself is made of individual yarn. Before that, Angavastram has certain characteristics of its own. I take a whole than of fabric, than means whole in whichever form it comes, 40 meters or 30 meters or whatever, and I cut a certain piece. I stitch the ends. So I've created a certain shape and size and I give it a name called Angavastram. And the purpose of use is Angavastram. But basically it is a fabric. Therefore, every quality of the fabric is there in Angavastram. The color of the fabric is the color of Angavastram. Normally, when you look at a fabric, you say it is patchy, for example. It is not good. The Angavastram has the same characteristic. That fabric itself is made of yarn. Again, although fundamentally it is only the yarn and will carry every property of the yarn into the fabric, it has its own certain rupa. You create a thin strip, you create a big width, you put so many threads together and weave them very tight, or you can weave them loosely. You weave them, like I was telling some in another class, in a jacquard pattern or simple pattern. Those become characteristics of fabric. But fabric itself doesn't exist without the yarn. That fabric is only yarn. But giving it certain shape and certain size and certain characters, we call it a fabric. From which the Angavastram came. Fabric is nothing but the yarn. So if the color of the yarn was white, and unless I dye the fabric in a different color, it will have the same color. The same characteristics of the yarn are transferred to the fabric with some additional characteristics, which will then carry forward to the Angavastram. What is the yarn? If you break the yarn down, it is only fibers. The characteristics of the fiber get transferred to the yarn, which then get transferred to the fabric, which then get transferred to the Angavastram. Suppose I use cotton fiber, you're not going to get a polyester Angavastram. You're going to get a cotton. The characteristic of the yarn get transferred to the fiber, get transferred to the yarn, then to the fabric, then to the cloth, to the dress, Angavastram, whatever. Suppose you use very fine, long staple Egyptian cotton. That's a characteristic of the cotton. Very long, very smooth, very silky. That is how the yarn will be. That is how the fabric will be. And that is how the Angavastram will be. If you make it out of waste cotton fibers, that is what you will get. At each stage, by giving it certain nama and rupa, we create something, create in quotes, something new. But the fundamental properties of the fiber gets transferred in sequence to everything that follows. Compare this to Brahman. To be understood very carefully. This fiber is cotton. It has characteristics of a cotton fiber. The particular fiber I use is long staple Egyptian cotton. It has certain properties. Those properties are transferred. In the case of Brahman, the difference between this and Brahman becoming, in quotes, the whole Jagat, including this body mentions complex, there is a big difference. Brahman is one order of reality. What is created is another order of reality. There is only one Satya. How to understand this? The Chidabhasa is one order of reality. The Swapna Kalpita Jiva Jagat is another order of reality. You can create any number of varieties. But this example that we try to use, the Drishtanta, to understand that the properties of what gets transformed into another product, into another product, into another product, that remains unchanging. That carries forward. Now, in the case of Brahman, we've been seeing all this time that there is no attribute. Nirguna. Then how do you then talk about properties getting transferred? Only in a negative sense. For example, we say Brahma is akhanda. Negative sense, na khanda, no parts. And then you say that the entire Jagat has many parts, many different varieties. But if you look into it, there are no parts. Because they are nothing but Brahman. Brahman is ajaha. But what we create, we say we're born at a certain date and certain time, dies at a certain. What dies and what is born and what dies? Not Brahman. These differences, which one understands, then why do you say Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahman? Are they not attributes of Brahman? No. Satyam is Brahman. Satyam is Jnanam. Satyam is Anantam. They are not different words describing Brahman. You don't need words to describe him because it is Swagata, Svajatiya, Vijatiya, Bheda Rahitam. There is no other. Why do you define characteristics? Only to distinguish one from another in the same group or in another group. There is no other. What are you going to distinguish? Therefore, there are no characteristics. There are no attributes. But in order to understand, we need to take an example from this Vyavaharika Jagat only. There is no other example. You can't even give an example which is like this. You have to take example from within the Vyavaharika Jagat. Fortunately, we use also within the Vyavaharika Jagat certain Pratibhasika. Therefore, this examples that you see, whether it is the fiber, yarn, fabric, dress analogy, or like he has taken here, lake, wavelet, and froth, all within the same order of reality of Vyavaharic reality. Only to show that if you can see this and understand this, you can use the same logic for understanding Brahman. So he uses in the next three verses, let's read these verses, verse 43 onwards. Madhurya dravya shaityani
Madhurya Dravya
Shaityani Nira dharmastarangake
Nira Dharmastarangake
Anugamvyata tannithe
Anugamyata Tanishte
Penepyanugata yatha
Penepyanagayata
Akshistha Satchidanandaha
Sakshista Satchidananda
Bandhat Vyavaharike
Sambandhat Vyavaharike
Tadvarenanugachanti
Tadvarenanugachanti
Tathaiva Pratibhasike
Tathaiva Pratibhasike
Pradibhasike
Taye Penasya Tadharmaha
Laye Penastadharma
Dravadhyasyuttarangake
Dravadhya Sankhe
Tasyapi Vilaye Nire
Tasyapi
Tasyapi
Vilaye
Vile
Tishtantyete Yatha Pura
Nishtante Yatha Pura
Pratibhashika Jivasya
Pratibhasya Jivasya
Taye Survyavaharike
Laye
Taye
Survyavaharike
Sthurvyavaharike
Laye Vyavaharike
Tallaye
Vyavaharike
Satchidanandaha
Tallaye
Tallaye
Satchidananda
Satchidananda
Paryavasyanti Sakshini
Paryavasyanti
Paryavastandi
Sakshini
Sakshini
Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Guru Namaha
Gurubhyo Namaha
Hari Om
Hari Om